What's going on, everyone? Jared Sandler here, live from Philadelphia. Uh, Opening day is a little under 24 hours away. So, wanted to take some time to chat with all of you and answer questions. So, let me just fire off a tweet. We already have some people who have posted some questions on Twitter. We'll take some questions in the chat as well. Sorry, I wish I could do these things multitask with this stuff. I'm good at multitasking with certain things, but firing this off. Okay. All right, so we'll do this for, I don't know. Well, I guess we'll see how long it carries us with questions and whatnot, or if I get some sort of ASAP call or text. But I'm checking the comments, so fire away in the comments if you have any Rangers questions. But I'll just get us going with some questions from Twitter. So the first one, with Wyatt Langford's success, do you think the team goes college hitter or pitcher in the first round this year? Dalen, that's a good question. But I think, with where the Rangers are picking, it's tough to really know, right? The Rangers are picking 16th. You can look at all the mocks you want, and I just don't know how accurate they are at that point of the first round. Rock Koloski is right now the presumed number 1 overall pick, and then Grady Emerson from DFW, number 2. And then I think there's Justin LeBron from Alabama, who a lot of people think will be 3. But beyond that, it's too tough to know. I don't know that the Rangers are have a type in that regard. But what I'll say is, if you look at the Rangers' strength organizationally, there's more pitching than there is hitting. Now, that doesn't mean you reach for a hitter if you don't think he's your guy. But I do think that, it's at least worth considering. But also, Chris Young is the president of baseball operations. He's done a tremendous job of building not just a good pitching staff, but one with depth. The Rangers are the healthiest, in terms of organizational depth, not necessarily physical health, although they are, knock on wood, healthy, but they're really healthy when it comes to pitching organizationally. They might not have some of the top pitching prospects in baseball right now, but they also just graduated Jack Leiter, and hopefully Kumar Rocker, who's no longer at prospect status, can contribute. Cody Bradford will hopefully come back and contribute this year. And obviously with the signings the Rangers have made and the trade acquisitions, they're in a great spot. But offensively, I think that's where there's room for growth for sure. When you look at top to bottom of the organization. So it's a good question from Dalen. It's just when you're picking 16th, a little tougher to forecast. JT, is there any chance the Field of Dreams game comes back? The Yankees versus White Sox game was straight out of a movie. Hollywood couldn't script a better ending. Need to see the Rangers play in Iowa on that field someday. Listen, I do think that the Major League Baseball has done a great job of getting creative with some of these games, the London game, the NASCAR game. But yeah, I do believe the Field of Dreams game is happening this year. If I'm not mistaken, it's Philly and Minnesota in August. So I don't know. I could be wrong on that, but I'm pretty sure that the Field of Dreams game is coming back this year. If it's not this year, then it's next year. But I don't know why they would be promoting it already for next year. And yeah, it'd be great to see the Rangers there. I just think, at the end of the day, there's a logistical element and then also a marketing element. You think about the Phillies, they got Bryce Harper. They got one of the most recognizable, marketable faces and personalities in the game. And so that probably plays a role. The Twins, with Byron Buxton, hopefully he's healthy. So I'm sure there's that element. The Rangers are just a very low-key group. But yeah, Jacob deGrom, Nathan Eovaldi, Corey Seager, Wyatt Langford, right? I think there's definitely a lot of sex appeal to, put the Rangers on that sort of stage. And I hope that, we get a chance to see the Rangers on that sort of stage at some point. Thank you for the hat flip challenge victory. We all know, with the Major League Baseball players on our broadcast team, the real athletes, the little 5, 6 3/4 Jewish kid. No, I'm just kidding, but that was fun. That was good. I enjoyed being able to rub that in their face for about 10 minutes before I get dunked on in some in some capacity. All right, another question here, and again, please feel free to fire away questions in the comment section. But another question here on Twitter. Will there ever be more content on RSN from Colt? That's a good question. That's a business decision way above my head. To have 24-hour content, just to give you guys a little insight, if anyone else has wondered that, to have think of like a restaurant. Some restaurants are open breakfast, lunch, dinner. Some are only, breakfast, lunch, some only dinner, whatever it might be. But, whenever the lights are on, you're paying for that space regardless. But whenever the lights are on, they're more expenses. Well, I think there might be some sort of expense to just own the channel in general, but to have the lights on, so to speak, to have content running, it costs money. And if you make money, you offset that, or you make it profitable or not hemorrhage money by, ad sales. Well, advertisers don't want to spend nearly as much money on a rerun of a game. So yeah, we could just continue to rerun game after game after game after game. But you're not going to make money. You're going to end up losing money off of that. And so I think before we expand the amount of time during the day in which that channel's lights are on, so to speak, I think we got to be in a position to regularly produce and put out content that would justify sales and allow for the team to, whether it's make money or break even, or, maybe even lose just like a little bit. But like, I don't know that, we're in that position, at this time. And I think, that's something that in the future, perhaps, from an entrepreneurial standpoint could be in play. But that's just a little insight as to why right now we're just kind of keeping it to games and obviously pre and post game. It's not easy to put out, I can sit here with a phone or do this little Q&A and whatnot, but that's not sellable content that, I think advertisers will like to spend big bucks on and to put out, like you guys maybe watch Rangers Insider, which used to be a show that would run every once in a while, but like that was like once a month, that you would get a new version of Rangers Insider. Now think about having to do that, whether it's once a week or more than that. And that's just one 30-minute show. So there's a lot that goes into that. For draft best available talent, for sure. Yeah. I do think that organizations have types, right? I think organizations do maybe, favor this route or that route. You're not drafting for need though. I do think that, teams might like to stay away in general from high school righties or college bat, whatever it might be. I think that, you're not going to pass on, a shortstop just because right now at the major league level, you feel like you need a left fielder, right? And I think teams try to stay up the middle as much as possible because you draft guys up the middle. Obviously catchers in theory will stay there, but shortstops can play second and maybe can move to third, or the outfield. Center fielders can probably play left and right. So you try stay as up the middle as possible. Okay. Another question here from Jam. How long will Skip give Pederson to get himself on track? The team can't afford another year of their DH batting below the Mendoza line. 100%. Yeah. I think a couple of things in play here. Remember last year was the first of a 2-year deal with Joc Pederson. And so I think, it made sense for the Rangers to try and see if he could get things going, right? You don't want to spend a year and a half paying Joc Pederson to go play elsewhere because, it wasn't like it was a cheap deal. And you're not that far removed from him having success, right? This year's a little different. This year, it's, can be the last year of the deal. And so, it's probably, a little less daunting to make that sort of decision if, on June 1st, Joc just hasn't figured it out. I do think that they're going to give him some time. I think you owe it to a player. I've always heard 100 at bats, right? 100 at bats is enough to where you really have a sample size. Now, for Joc, if he's not starting against lefties, then 100 at bats might be 80 at bats because maybe that's where we're at on May 1st. I don't know, but I do think that they give Joc a month, maybe a little bit more than that. But yeah, on June 1st, if just there's no signs of anything, then I'm sure the Rangers would consider making changes at that point. If it's really bad, maybe sooner. But I think there's a lot of optimism. I know Joc did not have like a statistically great spring, but I think there's optimism that that there are going to be steps in the right direction there. But I don't think the leash will be nearly as long this year as it was last year for some of those reasons. Is the team leader in saves already on the roster? And if so, who will it be? It's a fair question. I mean, the team leader in saves, I don't know that the team leader in saves is not in the organization. I guess there's a chance that the team leader in saves is someone who will start the year in AAA, maybe a Gavin Collier type. But, I think in all likelihood, it's someone who's on the roster. I don't know if it's someone who is starting the year as the closer. Although, I tend to think that Robert Garcia is better than people give him credit for. His numbers really weren't that bad last year. He had a couple rough patches that I think make things seem a little bit worse than they were. But yeah, I mean, I think Robert Garcia is obviously at this time the favorite, but I do think Cole Wynn's an interesting name. We talked about, I just mentioned Gavin Collier. I think he's an interesting name. Gosh, if Mark Church can get healthy, Mark Church is an interesting name. Same with a guy like Leandro Lopez, who I don't know if that's going to happen this year or not. But yeah, those are, and you can't forget Emiliano Teodo too. So, but I do think that ultimately the guy who's going to lead the team in saves is in the organization at the present time. Will the Rangers trade for a good closer? I don't think we should have let Kirby Yates go. Well, I think, will they trade for a good closer? I think depends on, where we're at. Last year, the price tag, if you look at, the price tag for the guys who were dealt, it was incredibly steep. And with where the Rangers were in the standings, it probably didn't make sense to give up the resources it would have taken to get a Duran or, to get one of those big names, even a Griffin Jacks type. And as far as Kirby Yates, I mean, listen, hey, it's Kirby's birthday today, by the way. The Rangers let Kirby go, and Kirby had a 5.23 ERA last year, so I don't know that they made the wrong move there. I think maybe they saw that Kirby, had a great year at, almost 40 years old, at 30, what was he in 2024? He was like 37, I think. But maybe they felt like, that was the best year and that was, going to be tough to replicate. Maybe they didn't think that at all, but they just, they thought it was too much money to pay a guy like that. But, Kirby wasn't, and he dealt with injuries, but he wasn't very good last year. So I don't think you can fault them for that. Now, would you, or, if you were in that chair, would you have done things differently how you build the bullpen? Yeah, possible. It's not like, you can question just the overall side of it. Like if you want to, everyone's got, a fair opinion and stuff. And listen, it's not that letting Kirby Yates go is a bad opinion. I just think statistically speaking, I don't know that you would have been happy with, that version of Kirby Yates with the Rangers. So, but yeah, I do think the Rangers, if they're in it come deadline time, I think they will make a move to fortify the bullpen. And potentially the closer. Remember, guys who get saves are more expensive than guys who, help the bullpen in the innings leading up to that. So it just depends on the price tag and what the Rangers want to give up from a resources standpoint. Are those jerseys our Real City Connect unis? Are they special edition? I honestly don't know. I mean, I know stuff was leaked. I'm not sure beyond that. But I guess we'll find out soon. So in other words, okay. Some other questions here. The ETA for Cody Bradford when he comes back, what are the chances he'll be in the rotation? Well, the ETA is probably somewhat soon for Cody Bradford to start pitching in games in a rehab environment, right? Pitching, and maybe when I say soon, I mean next couple weeks, maybe you could see him throw an inning an inning or two in a minor league game. I think the hope is that Cody Bradford could be an option in late May. Now, will he be in the rotation or not? Right off the bat, I think it just depends on the health, right? Are the 5 starters in the rotation right now healthy? If they are, then probably not, because you'd probably just use it as an opportunity to ease him back in a multi-inning bullpen role. But if someone gets hurt and it makes sense for Cody, really possible. If it makes sense for, Cody to just kind of ease back in long-term in a multi-inning bullpen role, and then when there's an opportunity to be in the rotation, then that's the route they'll go. I do think Cody Bradford, in the eyes of the organization, is a starting pitcher. It's just, I think there are a lot of variables in play as to how he rejoins the big league club based on performance of others and health of others and all that stuff. So, I think that those are some of the variables in play. If the Rangers could get 5 players in the All-Star game, who would be your 5? Okay, so I think this is asking if you're telling me the Rangers have 5 All-Stars, who am I predicting are there 5? I mean, maybe this is kind of a chalky thing. Eovaldi, DeGrom, Seager, Langford, and I guess for the fifth, it's tough to get outfielders. Danny Jansen, if you're that, and maybe Jack Leiter. I think Jack Leiter, Jack Leiter's kind of a dark horse candidate for that for sure. All right, let me see if there are any other questions here. Okay, I'm not seeing anything right now. The Rangers finalized their roster. The biggest I don't want to say surprise, but the biggest unknown was who was going to be the fifth starter, and Kumar Rocker is going to get the first opportunity in the rotation. Jacob Latz will be, a valuable asset in the bullpen, and I think one of the reasons why they went that route, Kumar definitely earned it, but I think they also look at Jacob Latz and Kumar Rocker and see that, well, Kumar Rocker probably wouldn't be, a big resource in the bullpen, whereas Jacob Latz certainly, has that, that pedigree and those skins on the wall. Why Jankowski using 96? I think, Joe, I think it has something to do with the sum of the birthdays of his kids or something like that. I believe that's the answer. I think Nimmo is going to be a massive contributor to the team and fan base. Yes, I do think that Brandon Nimmo, first of all, fans I think will love him. He's going to sign more autographs and take more pictures than anyone. I mean, this guy's unbelievable. It's like he has 28 hours in the day or something. With the way he's able to do all that. If you look at the moves the Rangers made this offseason, I know that a lot of people wanted the Rangers to, steal the headlines by getting this big name or that big name. Everyone wants that, right? But the reality is the Rangers clearly had, limited resources or more limited than other teams. And I think the front office did a good job of, making shrewd moves, with that being the case. Because if you look at the Rangers last 2 years offensively, their identity was that they lacked one. They underachieved. I guess their identity was that of an undisciplined group that lacked an approach consistently enough to have success, right? And that might sound harsh, but you look at the discipline metrics, they weren't great. So who do you add? Well, most recently you add Andrew McCutchen, a guy who his whole career has been someone who will draw walks and, have stingy at bats where he, makes pitchers work and, doesn't chase. You add Brandon Nimmo, who last year for the first time had a below average walk rate, but he did so in combination with having a career high in home runs, but someone who doesn't chase a ton. And it's not that he, didn't walk and became incredibly undisciplined. He just was a little more aggressive and probably turned into some power, but a guy who, has had a couple of, 40 or 400 on base seasons. And that's kind of his MO is leadoff hitter type, someone who can also hit lefties and righties. And you add Danny Jansen, a guy who doesn't chase a ton either, a guy who's got a good walk rate. And so I think in trying to change over the identity of the team, you add those guys and you replace, you lose three guys who were not disciplined and didn't really walk a ton. Adolis Garcia, very undisciplined, especially the last couple of years. Jonah Heim, same thing. Marcus Semien, very aggressive. He walked a little bit, but, not, maybe didn't fit into the identity that this team wanted to shift towards. You can't have the same type of player, right? Jake Berger has a place in this team, in this lineup, but especially more now that he's got guys around him who can balance his aggression. Same with Corey Seager, right? You just don't want too many of the same types of guys. Don't want to be a Debbie Downer, blah, blah, blah. Eovaldi or DeGrom, who's more likely available or both? I don't know who's – if the season I think if the Rangers were it was just a really bad start to the season, I don't think the front office would necessarily advocate for this, but if the if ownership maybe pushed for something like this, you could see both of them, right? I think whenever if you go into a full sell mode, I think anything's on the table. If the Rangers, if they went that direction. Yeah, Sean. So I answered the Joc thing earlier. So if you go back, it's more of an expanded answer. I know not everyone joined it from the start, so no big deal. But the short of it is, I think he gets a month to 2 months. I think if it's just not there at all in the first month, then I think, that could be on the shorter end. If you're seeing signs of it, maybe they let it go on, see if something can really spark. But yeah, I don't think that they're going to give him an indefinite leash this year, but I also think there's a lot of confidence that question's not going to really be asked once we get going, because, even though his spring training numbers weren't great, I don't think there's a lot of concern that the spring training numbers will definitely translate into the regular season. Okay, let me see if there are any other questions. Who's your favorite Ranger? Who's my favorite Ranger and non-favorite Ranger? I mean, I don't know if that's like all time or on the current team. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'll go with two guys who, Nathan Eovaldi and Corey Seager, were Great Lakes Saloons, and I was a broadcaster for the Great Lakes Saloons, and so there's a cool tie with that. So, but I love all. I mean, these guys you get to be around them and their families. You get to know these people. All time, Michael Young, and then right behind him would be Adrian Beltre and Ian Kinsler, and then. I think my favorite non-Ranger all time, Griffey. Not the most novel answer for people my age range, but it is what it is. And then I guess non-Ranger active, Jose Trevino. Let's see. I'm trying to think going around the league. I feel like I'm missing someone who I just love, and for whatever reason, I'm not. I mean, obviously, like, it's fun watching Ohtani. I love watching Schwarber. I love watching Skeens pitch. I feel like I'm missing someone who. It's definitely not anyone on the Astros. Listen, Ohtani's great. Bobby Witt. Bobby Witt's a fun one. Am I missing someone? I feel like I might be missing someone who I really do love this guy, but for whatever reason, maybe I don't love him as much as I thought. I mean, I do love watching Gunnar Henderson. I've always loved Alex Bregman, especially, and I hated it while he was on the Astros, but I really like him a lot more now that he's not. So yeah, I guess those are some of them. I just think that we got so many fun, great players to watch in the game. It's it's really cool. It's a really cool time for baseball right now, I think. How much fun is it to cover baseball? I mean, I'm living a dream. That's the best way to put it. Clubhouse vibe definitely feels different, definitely more positive, definitely more loose. I think there are a lot of reasons as to why, but I do think that it's a much better mix in the clubhouse this year. No doubt about it. All right. Well, I think that's going to be it. I appreciate you guys. It's been a lot of fun. We'll do more of these throughout the year. Can't wait for opening day. Our pregame coverage will start an hour before first pitch. So hopefully you join us, and we'll talk to you guys later. See you later.